What is up, YouTube? My name is Eben, and today I'm bringing you one of my favorite expanded decks ever, bar none, and that is Devour Durant. This Durant, for those of you who maybe weren't playing when this was a thing, basically what we care about is it's one metal energy attack, Devour, that takes a card off the top of your opponent's deck for every Durant you have in play, including itself. So the idea is pretty simple. You get your 4 Durants in play, and you devour 4 cards every turn and deck your opponent out. And thanks to how Pokemon works with such heavy card draw and searching, they help you deck themselves out. They almost have to in order to even have a chance of attacking you back anyway. So, of course, in order to devour, we could sacrifice our Durants, or we could just use Mew. Mew is another nice one-prize Pokemon that's not going to potentially be an EX or GX surrendering 2 prizes, and can copy that Devour attack thanks to Memories of Dawn, and even has free retreat for a nice pivot if you ever should need it for some reason. But basically, you try to get Mew in when you can instead of the Durant. That way you've always got 4 Durants in play, but we've got plenty of ways to bring it back so that we're always devouring for 4 every turn. The only 2 other Pokemon we're running, since we're trying to avoid our EX and GX mons, is we're running one Bunnelby here. This is the Primal Clash one that has Burrow, which can mill a card, and since it's got Omega Barrage, you can attack twice in the turn, so it mills 2. And or you can mix it with Rototiller kind of as a Hail Mary way to get something back from your discard pile. It's a nice little one-of that you can mill with if something is going like drastically wrong with your Durants. But it's also a nice way to retrieve things to your deck, like energies or something if you really need it, if it's that stage in the game and you don't really have any other options. So I just like having it around. And the other option we've got here is our Shining Legends Hoopa, just because he's protected against your opponent's GX and EX mons, and that can make him a very good way of stalling turns and therefore milling cards from your opponent. In fact, if we really have to, some decks can't really deal with him except by Lysandering or Guzmaing around him. You can even not play any more benched Pokemon if you absolutely have to, and just have Hoopa on the board. That's probably not how we're going to be slicing it here, but the point is, it can mill your opponent pretty darn well. And that's the entire Pokemon base, and everything else is meant to support it. We're running 4 Sycamore as supporters. This is just kind of a no-brainer because we play our cards out very quickly and we need to set up desperately quickly, so everything's kind of about turboing that in those first few turns. We're opting for 3 ends here because we don't want to late game kind of restore our opponent's cards to their deck, and N can do that, but in a pinch we can also use it to mess them up by reducing their hand size, because we'll always have 6 prizes. We'll never take a prize in this deck. We don't attack for damage, period. We also run 3 Cynthia because she's just a really good card drawing option, and a Colress. Since this is an expanded deck, we have the option to retrieve things from our discard pile. So these are just kind of being maximized for drawing naturally, but a lot of our other supporters are going to be 1 or 2 ofs because we're planning to like Versus Seeker and so on to get them back. We've also got Teammates because we're going to be getting knocked out with a pretty good amount of frequency, and that's fine because this makes sure our next Durant or Mew is able to fire off their Devour perfectly. We've also got 1 Gladion. The reason we've got Gladion here is you will occasionally prize a Durant, maybe 2, hopefully just 1 if any. Statistically speaking, that's kind of how it's going to go. So Gladion basically lets you go get it, but even if you don't have any Durants in your prizes, this can still pick out something you need. Like this can be an energy if you need an energy. This can be a puzzle of time, anything like that. So pretty handy to have Gladion around. And we are also running 1 Team Rocket's Handiwork. It can be a nice thing to VS Seeker, or just fire off when you don't need to draw cards that turn. So it's a really good one-of supporter for us. That's our supporter line. And moving on to our items, these are all pretty quick play here. We got 4 Nest Balls because all of our basic mons, we just want to slap them right down on the bench. So there's no reason you wouldn't opt for Nest Ball. I mean, Ultra Ball just discards cards for basically what's going to be the same thing. Level Ball gets everything except Hoopa in the deck, and this draw engine is trying to maximize getting down our Durants and Mews just as fast as possible. Turn 1 if you can. Bridget's okay, but you either have to search for her with Lele, which is a liability for Lysander and Guzma, or you're kind of trying to draw Bridget at the right time early game without Lele, which isn't really that great. These, we can just run them and get it done quickly, easily, and then refill our hand with Sycamore, no consequences, basically. We're running 3 Rescue Stretchers. This is for retrieving Durants, because they are going to get knocked out, let's be honest, so this can let you just pick it right back up from the discard pile and slap it right back down on your bench. Then we've got 4 Versus Seekers, pretty straightforward there, don't need to do too much explaining. And we're running 4 Puzzle of Time. This can retrieve, well, anything when you play it in pairs, and that's something we're by running through our deck really quickly, we're trying to set up as well. Our ace spec is going to be life due, because that way we can rob our opponent of a prize, basically. That's one more turn worth of stalling, one more turn worth of devouring on our opponent's deck, and it's a nice thing to retrieve with Puzzle of Time as well. We're running 3 Fighting Fury Belt. This just gives us a little bit more buff to our HP. We might be able to survive an OHKO, what would otherwise be an OHKO with this. But this is also a pretty good shield against anybody who's trying to do like spread damage to pixeling off on your bench or something like that. So it definitely has its moments of usefulness. We're running 4 Trainer's Mail. This just lets us search up all our many trainer supporters, etc. We've also got 1 Super Rod. This is mainly for bringing back your energies, but it also stocks your deck so that you don't accidentally deck yourself out, of course. And lastly, we are running 1 Field Blower. We care about very few things our opponent might play as far as tools or stadiums, but we do kind of care about Parallel City. That can slow us down a little bit, basically to where we're devouring for 3 a lot of the time instead of for 4, which is obviously something we don't want. And we're not a big fan of Garbodor, so we do run the 1 Field Blower, and we can Puzzle Time it back if we need to fire it more than once, that sort of thing. And that is the item line. Not tons of items, but they're meant to play out pretty quickly. So we're not as vulnerable to item locks as we might look like we are. And finally, our basic energy, we're running just 8, and they're all metal energies to make sure we can fire off our Devours. You want to get that off every turn. And including the first one where retrieving it via, say, a Puzzle of Time, or maybe having access to the Gladion yet to go get it from your prizes isn't necessarily something you've got too soon. So the 8 should allow us to just draw into it naturally in the early game. That's the deck. Give it a try and expand it. It is a lot of fun. It's a really interesting, unique way to win and play. And until next time, like, comment, subscribe, check out my channel for more cool content, and I will see you next time.